The Pacific breeze tasted like freedom. For the first time in 7 years, I wasn't hunched behind a laptop at 2 a.m. rewriting proposals or cleaning up someone else's mess. I wasn't skipping holidays, missing birthdays, or apologizing to friends for canceling plans. I was finally on vacation. Hawaii had been a dream, one I kept locked away behind loyalty and exhaustion. My therapist once called me a high-functioning burnout risk. I laughed then. I don't laugh at that anymore. My name is Olivia Hart, and up until that moment, I was Senior Operations Manager at Valtrex Systems, a company I gave far too much of my life to. The sun warmed my skin as I leaned back into the lounge chair, fruity drink in hand, waves crashing softly nearby. The resort was nearly silent, except for occasional laughter from honeymooners and the soft strum of live ukulele music from the bar. It was paradise. Then my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it, until I saw his name. Richard Blake. My boss. The man who once bragged that he could smell weakness in an employee just by looking at them. The same man who said taking vacation was career suicide. He had approved mine only because HR forced his hand. My stomach tightened, but I answered anyway. Old habits. What do you think you're doing? His voice exploded through the speaker before I could say hello. A week in Hawaii, during quarter-end reporting? Are you insane? I blinked slowly, letting his anger wash past me like ocean foam dissolving on sand. Richard, I said calmly, my leave was approved. We don't need lazy employees who take advantage of the system. He spat. You're fired. Effective immediately. A few months ago, those words would have shattered me. But now, sitting under palm trees, sand between my toes, finally exhaling after years of suffocating, I laughed. Not a nervous laugh. A free one. A sound I hadn't heard from myself in I don't even know how long. And before he could finish whatever rant he had lined up next, I hung up. Silence returned. Warm, calm, almost approving. Beside me, the man I had met just hours earlier, polished, confident, with a relaxed kind of authority, raised an eyebrow. Trouble? He asked. His name was Nicholas Hale, and earlier that afternoon we'd discovered we were both in town for a corporate networking retreat being hosted at the resort. A retreat I hadn't wanted to attend. A retreat that happened to include executives from Fortisphere Technologies, Valtrex's biggest competitor, including their CEO, Nicholas. I lifted my glass toward him. Just got fired, I said, voice steady. He didn't react with pity. Instead, he smiled in a way that felt like the universe nudging a domino. Well, he murmured, tapping his glass to mine. About time. I paused mid-sip. About time? He leaned back, studying me. Not like someone assessing a stranger, but someone confirming a suspicion. I've watched Valtrex for years, he said. The innovation is there, but the leadership? A humorless chuckle escaped him. Rotten foundation, and everyone I speak to mentions one name. Over and over. My heart thudded. Yours. I froze. 7 years of sacrifice, of grit, swallowed frustration, and dignity chipped away, suddenly crystallized into something I had never allowed myself to believe. I mattered. Nicholas continued, voice low and measured. You don't strike me as someone who folds, so tell me, Olivia, what do you want now that you're finally free? The question hit harder than the firing, because I didn't know. Not yet. But I knew one thing. Going back was not an option. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed again. A text. From Richard. You walk out on reporting week? You'll never work in this industry again. Another message followed immediately. Return your laptop. HR will be in contact. You signed a non-compete. Don't get clever. I felt anger. Not sharp rage, but a cold, steady clarity. Nicholas read my expression. "He's panicking," he said. "That tells me you hold the real leverage." My pulse quickened, not from fear, but from an unfamiliar, intoxicating feeling. Possibility. I lifted my glass again and whispered, "Then let's see what happens next." Nicholas smiled, and something in the air shifted. I didn't know it yet, but Richard's call wasn't the end of something. It was the spark, the beginning. Because when I finally returned home 4 days later, tanned, rested, and no longer afraid, the chaos waiting for me wasn't just shocking. It was hilarious. And it was only the beginning. When my flight touched down in Los Angeles 4 days later, the illusion of paradise dissolved into the grounded weight of reality. But not in the way I expected. Normally, stepping off a plane meant returning to pressure, demands, unread emails, and a boss waiting to tear apart whatever wasn't perfect. But now, I had nothing tying me back. No job. No corporate chain around my ankle. No constant fear of disappointing someone who never saw my worth. And yet, even knowing that, my stomach fluttered with nerves as I rolled my suitcase toward the rideshare pickup zone. Getting fired was one thing. Facing the consequences, that was something else entirely. The morning sky was pale gray, the kind of washed-out color that made the city look tired. The air smelled like exhaust fumes, stale airport coffee, and the familiar scent of California asphalt heating under the sun. My phone buzzed. For a second, I considered ignoring it again, but curiosity won. A voicemail notification from the company number? A voice I recognized. HR. I sighed and pressed play on speaker while waiting for my Uber. "Hello, Olivia," came the overly rehearsed tone, bright enough to sound polite, stiff enough to mean business. "We received confirmation of your termination from Richard. Per protocol, we're scheduling a meeting to discuss transition of responsibilities, return of equipment, and review of the non-compete and confidentiality clauses." Then, almost as an afterthought, "We would also like to request your cooperation in ensuring a smooth handoff." A pause. Then click. No empathy. No acknowledgement of 7 years. Just procedures. My jaw tightened. A black Mercedes pulled up, sleek, polished, and nothing like the average airport ride. The window rolled down. "Olivia?" the driver asked. I nodded and got in. As the car merged onto the freeway, my phone buzzed again, this time with a text from an unfamiliar number. "Hi, Olivia. This is Nicholas's assistant, Mara. He asked me to reach out. Wednesday afternoon works for us if you're available." I stared at the screen. Wednesday. 2 days from now. My pulse quickened, not with panic, but anticipation. I typed a reply. "Wednesday works? Thank you." Before I could overthink it, I hit send. When I got home, I expected a feeling of defeat, maybe dread. Instead, I felt space. My apartment was quiet, untouched, sunlight spilling through floor-to-ceiling windows in patterns that felt new, almost unfamiliar. For the first time in years, the silence wasn't tied to exhaustion. It was potential. Still, practical matters remained. I powered on my company laptop, mostly to check whether they'd locked me out yet. They hadn't. Emails flooded in, mostly automated alerts and flagged messages. But then one subject line caught my eye. Client escalation. Urgent. It was addressed to me, sent after I'd been terminated. I clicked it open. A senior client, one of our biggest accounts, was furious that reporting deadlines were missed. A chain of panicked responses followed, none resolving anything. Then another email. "Where is Olivia? Who approved her removal from this project?" A second message below it. "She handled this partnership. We expect continuity or compensation." A slow, stunned disbelief spread through me. They didn't just fire me at the wrong time, they fired me in the middle of active deliverables. And the person Richard tried to replace me with? Someone who clearly had no idea what they were doing. My phone buzzed again. This time a text from an old colleague, Harper, someone who always observed quietly, never publicly choosing a side. Hey, are the rumors true? Did Richard really fire you while you were on vacation? Another message followed before I could reply. Everyone's losing it here. Clients are furious. He's blaming you, blaming me, for a decision he made. I felt my chest tighten, not from fear, but anger. Cold, steady, controlled anger. I typed back, yes, it's true. I'm no longer with Valtrex. I have a meeting this week. Please keep this between us. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, for what it's worth, everyone knows you carried this place. Richard made a huge mistake. I stared at that message for a long moment. 7 years, hundreds of late nights, millions in revenue managed, and only now that I was gone, people were admitting it. Funny how truth surfaces once it's too late to fix anything. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, sat at my dining table, and opened a blank notebook. At the top of the page, I wrote one sentence. What do I want? Not the company, not Richard, not expectations. Me. The pen hovered for a long moment before I finally wrote the truth. Quiet, simple, but powerful. To work where I am respected, not tolerated. I exhaled slowly. For the first time in 7 years, I wasn't surviving. I was choosing. And as I closed the notebook, one thought echoed louder than fear, louder than uncertainty. Richard had no idea what he had just started. By Wednesday morning, my nerves were electric. Not anxious, but alert, like the quiet beat before a storm breaks. I chose my outfit carefully, not because I wanted to impress Nicholas, but because I wanted to represent myself. Navy blazer, crisp white blouse, tailored pants. Professional, confident, and nothing like the woman Richard had tried to dismiss as lazy. As I drove into downtown Los Angeles, I couldn't help noticing the contrast between the Valtrex building I had passed 1,000 times and the sleek tower across the street bearing the name Fortisphere Technologies. Their building reflected sunlight like a mirror. Clean, intentional, modern. Nothing about it whispered hierarchy or outdated ego. Everything was sharp and forward-facing, unlike Valtrex. I checked in with reception, and moments later, a poised woman with a tablet approached me. "Olivia?" she asked warmly. "I'm Mara. Nicholas is expecting you." We walked through a corridor of glass conference rooms, each one filled with quiet collaboration, whiteboards full of strategy, energy that felt alive, not forced. When Mara opened the final door, Nicholas stood from the head of the table, offering a genuine smile. "Olivia, I'm glad you came." I shook his hand. Firm, calm, present. "Thank you for the invitation." We sat. Mara closed the door behind us. Nicholas leaned back slightly, studying me. Not with intimidation, but with curiosity. "I'll get straight to it," he said. "Your departure from Valtrex created waves." I held his gaze. "I know. Clients reached out already." His eyebrows lifted slightly. Not surprised, but impressed. "I assumed they would," he said. "You built their trust. And trust doesn't transfer just because a company wants it to." For the first time in days, I felt something loosen in my chest. Validation, not flattery, just truth spoken plainly. Nicholas opened a folder in front of him. "Before we discuss anything formal, I need clarity. Why did Richard fire you now? And why did he feel so threatened by your vacation?" I exhaled, choosing my words carefully. "Because my work made him look competent," I said bluntly, and my absence revealed the truth. Nicholas nodded once, slow and deliberate. "That tracks," he murmured. I continued. For years, I carried the major accounts. I knew operational gaps, client needs, failure points. Richard didn't see that as value. He saw it as a threat. A quiet pause settled between us. Then Nicholas closed the folder. Good, he said, because I'm not looking for someone who needs permission to lead. I'm looking for someone who already knows how. I swallowed, not out of fear, but because the moment felt heavier than expected. Before we move forward, I said, there's something you should know. Richard is already using the words non-compete and legal action. Nicholas didn't flinch. He's posturing. Firing you nullified most restrictions. And California law rarely upholds non-competes, especially after unlawful termination. His certainty steadied me. Then he slid a page toward me. Not a contract. A list. Company names, clients, ones I knew, ones I had managed, ones now asking questions. My pulse quickened. These organizations have reached out to Fortisphere in the last 48 hours, he said. Some directly, some informally. All referenced you. All of them. Not one, not two. All. Richard must have been unraveling. Nicholas tapped the paper gently. I'm not asking you to recruit. I'm not asking you to solicit. I'm asking whether, if these companies choose to move, you're willing to be the person they trust on the other side. My throat tightened, not with pressure, but with something dangerously close to pride. Yes, I said. If they come to me, I'll take the call. Nicholas smiled. Not wide, not triumphant. Just knowing. That's what I needed to hear. He reached into the folder again and slid one final document toward me. Vice President, Operational Strategy and Client Experience. My breath caught. A title I had been denied for years, not for lack of merit, but because someone else needed to protect their ego. Take your time, Nicholas said. Read it, ask questions. I don't need an answer today. I nodded, though part of me already knew the answer. As the meeting wrapped, Nicholas walked me to the elevator. Just before the doors closed, he said softly, "One more thing, Olivia." I looked up. You weren't fired because you were replaceable. You were fired because you weren't controllable. The doors slid shut. My reflection stared back at me in the metal paneling. Same face, same eyes. But something was different. I wasn't returning to my old life. I was stepping into something new. And Richard, he had no idea what was coming. 2 days after the meeting with Nicholas, I woke up to a notification that made me sit straight up in bed. A LinkedIn message from one of my largest former clients. Olivia, we heard you're no longer with Valtrex. We'd like to schedule a call regarding continuity. Please let us know where to reach you. I reread it 3 times. Not angry, not confused, just clear and direct. They didn't ask if I was okay. They didn't ask whether the rumors were true. They asked who they should follow. Me, not Valtrex. My heart started pounding, not in panic, but in confirmation. Nicholas had been right. Trust wasn't transferable. I typed a short professional response and forwarded the message to him and to the legal team at Fortisphere. Within minutes, my phone buzzed. This time with a text from him. They came faster than expected. Good. Let legal handle the next steps. Sit tight. I placed the phone down and exhaled slowly. Everything was beginning to move. Later that afternoon, I drove to Valtrex headquarters to return my laptop. It felt surreal walking into the building I had dedicated 7 years of my life to. The walls looked exactly the same. Cold gray, stale fluorescent lighting, framed motivational posters that felt like lies now. People stared. Some whispered. One colleague, a junior analyst I had mentored, rushed toward me. Olivia, wait. I paused. His expression was tense. Richard's been losing it, he whispered. Ever since you left, everything's falling apart. Clients are threatening to pause retainers, the reporting backlog is a disaster, and Trevor... He grimaced. Trevor tried to lead a client call and couldn't explain half the workflow. Part of me felt vindicated. Another part felt sad. Not for Richard, but for the people still working under him. "Thank you for telling me," I said softly. He nodded, then lowered his voice even more. "He told everyone you abandoned your responsibilities, but people don't believe him. They saw how you worked." I swallowed the sudden sting in my throat. Recognition. Respect. Late, but real. Finally, I reached the HR office. A woman I barely knew sat behind the desk, posture stiff like she was trying to appear neutral. "Laptop," she said, sliding a paper across the counter. It was a signature form. I placed the laptop on the desk and signed. She didn't thank me. She didn't look up. Just protocol, like everything else. Before I turned to leave, she spoke quietly, without meeting my eyes. "For what it's worth, I don't think this was handled correctly." I paused, studying her expression. Tight, conflicted but sincere. "I appreciate that," I said. Then I walked out for the last time. As I stepped into the parking lot, the air felt different. Lighter, like the sky itself was releasing pressure. I unlocked my car, but before I could get in, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, until instinct told me exactly who it was. I answered. "Olivia." Richard's voice. Sharp, clipped, strained. I didn't speak. "I know you've been talking to clients." His tone was accusatory, but beneath it there was something new. Fear. "I haven't solicited anyone," I said calmly. "If someone contacted me, that's their decision." "You think you're untouchable?" He snapped. "You think you can walk away and take everything with you?" I leaned against my car door and let the silence stretch. He was unraveling. Finally, I spoke. "You made a decision, Richard. You fired the person who held your structure together." "That's not why I fired you." He breathed, voice lowering. "I fired you because you were becoming a problem. People listen to you more than they listen to leadership." There it was, the truth. "I gave 7 years to that company," I said quietly. "And you repaid that with humiliation." "You were on vacation," he barked. "In quarter end, no leadership material disappears during reporting." I laughed, a soft, exhausted sound. I didn't disappear. I finally rested. There was a long pause. Then his voice shifted, almost pleading. "Olivia, don't do this. You have influence. Clients trust you. If they leave, if this escalates, I won't recover." The honesty in his tone surprised me, not because he meant it, but because he finally admitted it. "I'm not doing anything to you," I said. "You did this to yourself." Before he could respond, I ended the call. My hand trembled slightly, not with fear, but with the weight of closure. That night, Nicholas called. "North Pacific Manufacturing has officially requested a proposal," he said. "It's happening." I closed my eyes, letting the reality sink in. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't spite. This was alignment, the natural redirection of loyalty toward respect. And as I stood there in the quiet of my living room, one truth settled deep inside me. When people finally realize their worth, everything around them must adjust, whether it's ready or not. 3 weeks later, I sat in my new office at Fortisphere. Glass walls, clean lines, and a skyline view that reminded me of just how far I'd come in such a short time. The title plate beside my door still felt surreal. Olivia Hart, Vice President, Operational Strategy and Client Experience. A title I earned years before anyone was willing to admit it. My calendar was full. Client onboarding meetings, team planning sessions, legal consultations. But it didn't feel like chaos. It felt like momentum. Controlled, strategic, mine. Outside my office, a small team waited for direction. Not out of fear, but trust. A different kind of expectation. One I didn't shy away from. At 10:30 a.m. sharp, the meeting began. 3 major clients, former Valtrex accounts, were transitioning officially. Contracts were signed. Integration plans finalized. Continuity guaranteed. When we wrapped, the lead executive smiled through the screen. Olivia, you were the reason we stayed with Valtrex as long as we did. We're glad to finally be working with you. Not just through you. After the call ended, I sat back, letting the words settle. Not through you. With you. That difference meant everything. Later that afternoon, Mara knocked lightly on my door. "There's someone here to see you," she said. I frowned. "A scheduled meeting?" She hesitated. "No, but..." He asked politely. Said he wouldn't leave unless you agreed. That sentence alone told me exactly who it was. I nodded once. "Send him in." A moment later, Richard walked through the doorway. Except he wasn't the Richard I remembered. His suit looked wrinkled, his expression strained, his posture deflated. There was no arrogance in his eyes, only exhaustion and something painfully close to regret. He stood there silently until I gestured toward the chair across from me. He sat slowly. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, he exhaled. "You won," he murmured, not bitter, just defeated. "This wasn't about winning," I replied. "It was about being respected." His eyes flicked up to mine. "They're gone," he said. "The board removed me last week. Loss of confidence." I didn't flinch. The news wasn't surprising. "And the clients?" he asked, though I knew he already knew. 4 have transitioned," I answered calmly. "The others are evaluating their options." He nodded, swallowing hard. Silence settled again, heavier this time. Then he said something I never expected. "I thought control meant leadership. That fear meant respect." His voice was low, almost hoarse. "But you built loyalty in a way I never understood. And when you left, I finally saw the difference." I didn't respond immediately, because part of me, the part that remembered working until my vision blurred, the part that remembered being dismissed as emotional or excessive or replaceable, wanted to let him drown in his consequences. But another part, the part building something better now, chose a different approach. "You didn't lose to me," I said quietly. "You lost to your own arrogance." His eyes tightened, not angry, but acknowledging truth. He nodded. "I came here for one reason," he said after a moment. "Not to ask for anything, just to say, I'm sorry." The words didn't undo the damage, but they finally closed the door. I gave a small nod. Nothing dramatic, nothing sentimental. "Thank you for saying it." He stood slowly, adjusted his jacket as if trying to reclaim a fraction of dignity, then turned to leave. Just before he stepped out, he paused. "You're going to reshape this industry," he said. I wish I had seen it sooner. Then he was gone. That evening, after the office quieted and the city lights flickered on like constellations glued to glass, Nicholas knocked on my open door. "How are you feeling?" he asked. I thought about it. About Hawaii. About the phone call that ended everything. About the dining table list. The fear, the shift, the growth, the realization. "Clear," I answered. "Finally clear." Nicholas smiled. "Good, because this is just the beginning." Later at home, I sat on my balcony overlooking the city and raised a glass. Not to revenge, not to power, not to victory, but to something far more important: self-worth. Because the truth I had learned, The one I wish someone had told me years earlier was simple. Sometimes the moment that feels like everything falling apart is the moment everything finally falls into place. Richard firing me wasn't the worst thing that ever happened. It was the best, because walking away from a place that never valued me led me directly to one that does. And now, I wasn't the scared employee waiting for permission. I was the woman who chose her future. And this time, I didn't look back.